Hey everyone, thank you so much to Inex Moda for having us at Trend Watching today. Today I get the honor to talk to you about Consumerism Disrupted and a couple of key trends within the fashion arena. But before we dive into the trends, I'm going to share a very brief introduction about the company I work for, Trend Watching, and our methodology. So over at Trend Watching, we are obsessed with consumer trends, and we have a very simple yet structured way of looking at the world that helps us to spot trends. And we've been doing this for nearly 2 decades now, as we were founded in 2002. And our ultimate goal is to help organizations make sense of the change they see around them to create positive impact. And in that way, we are guided by trends and grounded in purpose. And this is just an impression of the clients we work for. And aside from these large corporates you see here in front of you, we also work with startups, with nonprofits, and entrepreneurs. For the longest time, I've started all of my talks with this statement: the world is always changing, because it feels like the most obvious statement to make, especially as a trend researcher. But you know, 2020 has been a year, and this year has been one too. And now I usually open with this one. So there are decades where nothing happens, and then there are weeks where decades happen. And I don't typically quote Vladimir Lenin, you have to trust me on that one. But this quote perfectly captures the world we live in today. Because as a result of the movement of people around the world came to a screeching halt as a result of a global pandemic, the global economy did with it as well. And you can still hear in my voice probably that I'm a little bit congested, which is also by the effects of COVID. Luckily, I'm recovered now, mostly. But I too came to a screeching halt. And as a result, many people had to pivot. This is an example of an animal sanctuary that offers goat and llama calls, where you can have an animal drop in on Zoom during one of your business calls. And you might think that this is a niche innovation, but they have been booked for 2021 on end and 2022 as well. And because of all of this change that is happening around us, it can be quite easy to feel overwhelmed. But I am here to tell you not to panic, because in essence, we are still the same humans with the same basic human needs. And these basic human needs don't change month to month, and not even a pandemic can change that. Okay, granted, some recent additions have been made as a result of the pandemic, but generally they stay the same. But when change bumps up against these core human needs, it creates tension. And that is exactly how we plot a course at Trend Watching, as it creates new consumer expectations. And within these expectations, there are new and meaningful business opportunities. Because at Trend Watching, we believe that if you want to hit that innovation sweet spot, if you want to innovate with true purpose, there are 3 key components that you should take into consideration, being the basic human needs that I just addressed, the innovations that are already out there within your market, and then also the drivers of change. And drivers of change are large societal forces that impact consumer behavior and consumer expectations. Because if you just take 2 out of the 3, you will never hit the sweet spot. For instance, if you innovate based on basic human needs, you will get more of the same. If you innovate just based on the drivers of change, you will create fads or hype or novelties, as we call them. But if you combine the 3, that is when you can hit that innovation sweet spot. And even though we are a consumer trend firm, we don't ask consumers anything. You won't find me on the street asking consumers what they think of a particular product. Instead, we look to the innovations that consumers are already leveraging love and attention on today. And we use those to draw insights about future needs and wants of your consumers. Because innovations, in the end, resolve the tension and create new expectations. Let that sink in. Because you no longer compete with just your competitors, because we all live in an expectation economy. And your competitors are also from beyond the fashion industry. Your competition is the people that are best in class, whoever they may be, because expectations transfer. And Expectations transfer across industries, across borders, and also across price points. So that is also why a lot of what I'm going to be showing you today are innovations outside of the fashion industry, and potentially also innovations outside of your area of focus, but still bringing it back to the fashion industry every single time. But how does COVID fit into this model? Because, you know, as a result of the pandemic, a new type of consumerism has arisen. And over the past 18 months, a couple of these basic human needs that I addressed at the beginning have been heightened. The first one being health and well-being. Because as you can imagine, the need for the renewed focus for health and well-being has been as big as it ever has been, right? Because consumers globally have made it their number one priority. They've invested in preventive healthcare. They have, you know, done a health and well-being mental reset to kind of reconfigure what is truly important in life, and health and well-being usually coming out on top. But also connection. The need for connection has seen a big shift because what happens if you are not able to hug the ones you love anymore? All of that shifted towards digital interaction, which saw a surge in video platforms. And this is also an impressive stat to me, because 180 million more people use social media between July and September of 2020 compared to the previous 3 months. And convenience has also seen a big shift towards everything digital, which is traceable within the rise of e-commerce, but also the preference for local, and people discovering that you know, there's also security and other benefits compared to investing in local products and services. Because 59% of consumers in Europe are now more conscious about the products they consume, which include the preference for local, because it has a less of an impact on sustainability-wise, but also in terms of convenience, because it's closer by the door, people have to travel less. And then there's also peace of mind. So there are concerns about the future, worries about family and friends' health, economic constraints, changing regulations. A lot of people have lost their jobs, which has had a big impact on, you know, this state of peace of mind. Can I pay my rent? Can I even pay for the groceries? And then there's also entertainment, which has also seen a big shift to everything digital, because all of the live events were canceled and still are in the majority of the world. And as a result, there's been a large increase in gaming becoming a social activity and becoming much more than just gaming itself, which has led to a lot of new and hybrid events, similar to this one here today. Trust has also been a heightened need because the pandemic has also driven an infodemic. A lot of people having a lot of distrust in the government because they don't trust the way they have handled COVID accurately. There's been a rise of science influencers, a rise of fake news, and big tech has been on trial yet again. And last but not least, the need for fairness. So COVID-19 has heightened the existing inequalities that are there within the world. It's no surprise that it was the year that truly unlocked the Black Lives Matter movement and really tilted it to new heights, unlocking a global movement that is still as prevalent today as it was last year. Now, we have a lot to talk about today. There's going to be 6 trends I'm going to be covering. Each trend will consist of a little bit of trend theory, which I will then illustrate according to a couple of innovations that kind of show you how each trend is already manifesting within society today. And I conclude every single trend with what I call a light bulb moment, which is basically a question I would like to ask you, not something you have to answer directly as you are watching, but I will give you 30 seconds to really sit with the question and pin down your answers, because at Trend Watching, we believe that trends are only relevant once you apply them to what you are doing in your professional life, and sometimes also your personal life. But so whenever one of these light bulb questions pops up, and I ask you to take 30 seconds to write the answers down, please do, because those are the bits and pieces you take with you after the presentation has ended. And those are the little nuggets of inspiration you can share with your team afterwards. Okay, enough talking from my side, at least on the introduction bit. Let's move over to the trends. So as I mentioned, I'm going to talk to you about 6 trends today, being brand care, green by numbers, for and by, creative challengers, virtual concierges, and contactless economy. Now, some of these trends, their name are pretty self-explanatory, but no worries. By the end of over the course of the next 50 to 45 minutes, you will have a better understanding of what each trend means and how you can apply it to your own business. So the first one being brand care and getting ready for the health economy, heavily linking to the basic human need of health and well-being, as I just mentioned at the beginning. So 74% of consumers agree that the pandemic has made them more concerned about the health of their families. Because for many people in developed countries, 2020 was a wake-up call that good health is not a given. And meanwhile, the pandemic is reversing decades of progress on healthcare, with the world's poorest and most vulnerable most affected. And studies are even indicating that COVID deaths are linked to poor air quality. And even as vaccines provide that ray of hope that we all need, you can expect these health concerns to linger. Because in 2021, it's ready, as I just mentioned, to get ready for the new health economy, in which consumers will expect every brand they interact with to become a healthcare brand and prioritize their and their friends and families' physical and mental well-being. And let's be real, consumers are not going to stop eating junk food or endlessly scrolling through TikTok, but the brands that provide those services will increasingly be expected to counteract poor habits. And mental health is disrupted as well, because even though the demand for health services is rising, these services have been halted and disrupted in 93% of countries. So mental health startups cover a growing range of use cases, but they won't reach everyone. And as the world returns to a new normal, some causes like isolation may fade, but others like unemployment will be amplified. And I briefly mentioned it at the beginning as well. There's also a renewed interest in preventative healthcare, so not curing. And this was a direct consequence of the pandemic. Because 25%, I believe, of British millennials have said that COVID has made a vegan diet more appealing. And similar numbers ring true worldwide, with veganism and meat alternatives skyrocketing worldwide. And make no mistake, the healthcare business is a big business, a huge business even, amounting to $2 trillion US dollars. And tech companies are taking an increasingly larger bite, with Apple partnering with the Singapore government, while Amazon unveiled the Amazon Pharmacy. And not all health practitioners are on board, but the direction is clear. So now I'm going to share a couple of innovations with you to kind of give you an example of how you can see that this trend is already manifesting itself in society. So new research suggests that gaming can benefit mental health as well. People are already using video games to release stress, so some brands are inviting therapists in. This is a US initiative by Skillshop, and they have paired therapists with gamers, so they can call in live into a game and kind of talk with gamers about their struggles, what they're going through, to kind of lower the threshold for these gamers to reach out and seek mental health assistance. And the large corporates, as I mentioned, are jumping into. This is an example by Microsoft, because they found out that global employees on average will leave half of their remaining paid time off days unused in 2020, with increased burnout rates as a result. So that is why Microsoft decided to shift its focus from software to people. And this new feature within Microsoft Teams will allow users to schedule a virtual commute to create a better workday structure and avoid overworking. And they also plan to integrate the meditation app Headspace for additional mental health support. And you can see a lot of services integrating Headspace, a meditation app, into their services. Look at Hinge, for instance, which is an online dating app. They ask themselves, could focusing on mental well-being help improve the services you offer? Well, Hinge hopes that this tie-up will allow daters to feel more relaxed, because they found out that a lot of people suffer from dating anxiety. And to tackle this dating anxiety, the free meditations, which last between 5 and 6 minutes, are available within Hinge. So whenever you feel anxious about a date coming up, you can simply click on one of the meditations to calm you down and soothe your nerves. This is an example by Hermes. So this year they released a series of yoga tutorials via their WeChat mini program. So they launched 4 videos lasting between 13 and 21 minutes, and they demonstrated how consumers could incorporate Hermes accessories into exercise regimes. For example, using the silk scarves, as you can see them here, as a balancing aid, and belts to stretch and perform breathing aids. And this next example I particularly like. It is an example by Pepsi. And you might ask yourself, how can Pepsi, enter this space of healthcare brands? But every brand can and should. So according to Pepsi, 55% of US consumers have high stress levels and 45% struggle to sleep as a result. So what specific needs could brand care address? Well, Driftwell, which is one of their latest products, and it is a beverage to help consumers unwind before bed. Driftwell contains theanine and also magnesium, 2 ingredients which clinically proven to combat stress and therefore make it easier for people to fall asleep. This is an example by the Guggenheim Museum in Bilbao, and they announced these new advertising banners, and they double as air purifiers to improve the city's air quality. I remember at the beginning I stated that poor air quality is linked to an increase in COVID deaths. Well, this is one way a brand can tap into that space and solve that problem, solve that tension. And I believe, according to the museum, these billboards equate to 700 trees planted, so quite a big number. This is an example from Colombia by Rappi. They're an all-purpose delivery app that has expanded into new verticals, including healthcare. So late last year, they announced plans to launch home and teleconsultations to administer PCR tests. And the services are performed by specialist providers and can be booked up to 14 hours in advance. And this is the first of the light bulb questions that I want to ask you. So with mental well-being now being more important than ever, how will you provide mental health care in 2021 and beyond? Again, I'm going to give you 20 to 30 seconds to write down your answer before I will continue. It also gives me the opportunity to take a little sip of water. Okay, moving over to the second trend. So even though the pandemic took center stage in 2020, other world issues didn't take the year off. Data suggests that 2020 was the warmest year on record, and news that global emissions fell 8.8% in the first half of the year only underlines the human-planet connection. So 70% of consumers, again, 70%, said they were more aware than before COVID-19 that human activities threatened the climate, and that in turn, the degradation of the environment threatens humans. And over the past few years, some brands have made bold claims around sustainability and ethics, claims that unraveled when it really mattered. And because of that, in 2020, it will not be enough. Just look at these stats. So 65% of executives say that consumers are aware of their sustainability initiatives, but nearly 50% of consumers say that they don't have any information to verify sustainability claims. And 44% do not trust those claims. So whenever sustainability claims are made, they should be anchored in fact, not fiction. Because otherwise, it will just be seen as greenwashing, which it usually is if it isn't backed up by actual facts and figures. One brand doing it right is Albert. So Albert encouraged other brands to share their carbon footprint, particularly if those footprints are better than their own. So they partnered with an environmental consultancy agency, the clean agencies, what they're called, to calculate their own carbon footprint of every sneaker within their collection. And the calculation, which includes the environmental impact of production, uses end-to-end life, but excludes transport emissions, which was displayed on its website. This is one example of how you can, anchor your sustainability claims in fact, not fiction. And then even, these shoes are not perfect, but showing that you are trying to get there is what are going to score you those eco-credentials among consumers. This is a travel example by Byway. They are a sustainable holiday company specializing in no-fly holidays and slow travel. And they offer custom multi-stop journeys featuring family-run and independent accommodation by train, but also by boat and also by bike over in the UK and in France. And as a result, they treat the journey as is also as part of the actual holiday. So could you take this trend one step further and challenge consumers to live within their climate means? That is what Felix asked themselves when launching their concept. So they launched the Climate Store, which is a pop-up grocery shop where products were priced based on their climate impact, and consumers paid for products with carbon dioxide equivalent. So whenever they were shopping, they were required to stay within a budget of the CO2 that I just mentioned. And this concept was part of a wider effort of the brand owned by Orkla, which is a Nordic food giant, to highlight the importance of customer choices in the fight against climate change. Sorry, apparently I had some trouble with my slides there. It's back on track now. So this is an example by Alencia, which is a Mexican initiative, and they launched this fashion transparency index. So the index tracked, reviewed, and classified 20 of the biggest fashion brands and retailers operating across the country, and brands were then assigned a score based on how much they disclose about their environmental policies. Alencia is based in the UK, but the fashion revolution worked with local partners like the Mexican-based CNA to improve their transparency within the fashion industry. This is another travel example by the nation of Palau. and they announced plans to become the first carbon neutral tourism destination. The project, which was a collaboration between the Palau Bureau of Tourism and Sustainable Travel International, had two main goals. The first one being to reduce tourism's carbon footprint by increasing the amount of locally sourced food and increase the capacity of domestic producers. So being sustainable by investing in local communities. And then the Palau government also developed a carbon management tool, which allowed visitors to calculate and track emissions from travel and tourism activities, offering choices for carbon offsetting as well. To kind of highlight, this highlights how Green by Numbers can also be a consumer forward application, and how you can empower consumers to partake in this fight against climate change. This is an example by Panties, which is a Brazilian-based period-proof underwear brand, and they announced plans to adopt zero carbon labels. So the underwear brand teamed up with Way Carbon, which is a Brazilian company that specializes in carbon calculations to estimate the impact of each Panties product. And you can see a common thread here if you have been paying attention, because all of these brands partner up with other brands. So it isn't necessary to have it all figured out by yourself. Sometimes it's even more trustworthy, or consumers find it even more trustworthy, if you work together with a trusted source that knows what they're doing, that can help you get ahead, and that can help you prove that you are being fully transparent, because your actions and your intentions are being audited by a third party. And that has led us to the second light bulb question. So I want you to take 20 seconds or so to answer: what consumer-friendly measurable approaches can you take to communicate your commitment to sustainability? Again, take 20 seconds to pin down an answer for yourself. Moving on to the third trend, being for and by. So a long brewing dissatisfaction with capitalism has collided with inequalities amplified by the pandemic. So combine that with last year's and this year's global Black Lives Matter protests and the rise of performative allyship, and consumers are increasingly skeptical and willing to challenge brands' claims of authenticity. So not just sustainability, but also their claims to authenticity. Because in 2021, consumers will look for brands to go beyond virtue signaling and focus on authentic social justice initiatives that were started by or prioritize the needs of sidelined groups, to amplify long overlooked voices and work as equal collaborators and partners to drive real social progress. But this is also a chance for a purpose audit, for brands to reevaluate their why and ensure that those principles guide every single action. So from social justice to sustainability. Because in a post-pandemic world, consumers will demand nothing less. Because the pandemic truly has impacted different groups unequally. For instance, in the US alone, Black people have the highest COVID mortality rate, because 2 or more times higher than the rates for white people or Asian Americans. And globally, the same numbers ring true. Taking a global view, women comprise, I believe, of 39% of the employment pool, but account for 54% of overall job losses. And some economists are concerned about a K-shaped recovery, with some segments of society recovering sharply, while others decline, further widening the inequality gap. And one glimpse of that is this painful figure, right? Billionaires' fortunes combined climbed by 27.5% to 10.2 trillion US dollars, with Bezos and Musk winning big. And 56% of global respondents believe that capitalism in its current form is doing more harm than good. And, you know, the pandemic didn't create these disparities, it just highlighted and heightened pre-existing issues. Because even before COVID hit, many people were already frustrated. And 71% of US consumers believe that companies have more responsibility than ever to address social justice issues. Therefore, stating that speaking out against this inequality is no longer optional. Because another study indicated that there was a study from 18 different markets that found that 4 in 5 people agree that brands should take action to support Black Lives Matter. And if you don't, it's going to reflect bad on you. Because for value-led consumers, counting on brands to balance doing good and making profits is just the start. They'll also expect them to actively uplift marginalized communities and promote diversity from within and be truly authentic change makers. And this is a gift from the Blackout Tuesday that was very popular last year, but it's simply not enough. It is just the beginning. This is an example called Greenwood, which is a digital banking platform for Black and Latinx people. So it is a financial service provider that aims to keep funds within the community. And they aim to ensure communities of color can accrue wealth and combat systemic oppression. And every month, the bank will provide $10,000 US to grant to a Black or Latinx small business owner that is a Greenwood consumer. And it's an example from the US. This is an example by Sephora. Sorry for that. And it is a campaign that encourages retailers and consumers to commit to change through visibility and spending. And what they have done is that they have pledged that 15% of the American population is Black. So therefore, they should also have 15% of the shelf space, which is the current status quo there now. And this is an example from Colombia by the makeup brand, and sorry if I butcher the name, but Estipo Maquillaje. And they ran a series of activations to raise awareness of the cultural heritage of indigenous people in Colombia. So the campaign includes a series celebrating the history and aesthetics of the makeup used by the Wayuu people. And the company gathered 4 representatives of the Wayuu people to host the actual tutorials on Instagram, teaching their viewers the correct application of the group's traditional face paintings and the meaning behind them. So how can you credit, reward, and champion the cultures and creators your brand takes inspiration from? And how can you help those creators challenge unethical business practices? That is what Black asked themselves. It is an initiative by a group of Aboriginal business owners, and they're a collective that promote transparency and ethical practices among businesses trading within the Aboriginal culture. So the collective hopes to educate Australian consumers and non-Aboriginal business owners about cultural appropriation and the need to give back to the community when selling Aboriginal products. And I really like this example as well. So We Solar is a community, a solar community, which is community-based. Sorry, it's a solar company that is community-based that provide affordable energy to low and moderate income families, specifically to them. And it is also the first Black female-owned energy company in the United States. because the energy business worldwide is often a very male-dominated one. And again, we land on one of the light bulb questions, which I want you to answer. To take about 20 to 30 seconds. So the creation of more diverse businesses can have a domino effect. What will you do to pay it forward in 2021? Moving over to, creative challengers, and about how brands are tapping into creativity to cultivate community. So, designer handbags, luxury cars, those are all traditional and material status symbols that don't carry the cachet they used to. Because in the era of the personal brand, it's creativity that grants true status. And the influencers and TikTokers who have achieved internet fame, and they use little more than just their smartphone camera, they are inspiring other consumers to try their hand at content creation. And at the same time, pandemic-induced anxiety has prompted people to use their skills to pursue and share creative endeavors. Because after all, engaging in creative activities has been scientifically proven to reduce stress. So what is next for brands? Well, brands need to challenge consumers to get creative, and not just for engagement, but also to build stronger communities and to work towards shared goals, with the consumer role shifting from passive to active. And this innovation or example made headwaves last year. It is an example by Nathan Apodaka. He posted this TikTok of him skateboarding, drinking ocean spray, and the video turned into a collaboration and a marketing campaign for them. So the learning here is that, you know, the rapid growth of TikTok combined with the ever lowering barriers to starting a side hustle or business means that every spark of creative genius can be documented, shared, pursued, further, and rewarded. So consumers have access to a mind-boggling amount of original content and products and can support creators on Patreon and Kickstarter. And consumers are reasoning, if I am stuck at home, I might as well gain some knowledge or engage in creative pursuits. And as they see their peers do the same, and pressure to use this time to gain and display status skills increases. And it is shown in various ways that they are indeed looking for these new skills. One is by an education platform called Coursera. And over the course of the pandemic, they saw an uptick in 1,500% in month over demand increases. So there is an opportunity to truly encourage creativity and foster collaboration here. And many brands are already leading the pack. The first one being by Zine and Samsung. Zine is a design magazine, and together with Samsung, they launched Out of the Box, which is a contest that challenges entrants to design items for the home that can be created out of card boxes. And the global contest is driven by Samsung's eco packaging that is designed to be repurposed. So there is both, you know, this engagement element, but also a sustainability element. This is an example by The Sims. So The Sims Spark is a 4-episode reality TV show which challenged 12 Sims players to show off their skills and creativity with a grand prize of $1,000. This is a fashion example by Wool and Prince. So they challenged their consumers to wear one of the brand's garments for 100 days straight. So the Wool apparel brand offered a $100 gift card to consumers when they provided 100 photos, one taken each day, to prove the garment was actually worn. And with the challenge, owner Mac Bishop wants to encourage people to reduce their consumption by normalizing the idea of owning fewer garments and wearing them for a longer period of time and repeating that wear more often. Taking it up into space, this is an example by NASA, and they opened its Lunar Loo Challenge, and they designed the general public to design a new toilet for astronauts. And the content was part of NASA's preparation for Artemis, which is the space agency's program to send the first woman and the next man to the moon by 2024 to create a base there that will facilitate missions to Mars, respectively. And another fashion example I like is by Zara. They work together with the Council of Fashion Designers of America, and they released, or they're working on releasing a capsule collection. So the Spanish retailer challenged 4 designers to create garments using vintage Zara pieces and pair them with new ones. So the statement-making designs feature pieces in agreement with Zara's fabric, and they joined live. The collection is supposed to be called Join Live, and they are going to be made available on Zara's website upon completion. And now we've landed on yet another live up question. So it's time to pick up your pen and answer this one. So is there something that you have always wanted to explore but haven't had the chance yet to do so? Use a creative challenge to dip your toe into new waters. So what creative challenge could you come up with your fashion brand? Okay, moving over to the 5th trend. We're going at lightning speed, being virtual concierges, about bringing the in-store experiences into consumers' homes. Because as I mentioned at the beginning, the pandemic has had an immense impact on our need for entertainment. So instead of experiencing everything outdoors, the experience has to be brought into the consumers' homes. Because why is this popping up now? Well, besides customizing characters in Animal Crossing and attending concerts within Fortnite, as you can see here, consumers have spent increasing amounts of time interacting with shared virtual spaces, all from the comfort of their own home. And these experiences are changing their attitude towards immersive experiences in general, but also towards product displays. And 61% of consumers said that they would be more likely to buy from a brand that uses immersive technology, such as augmented reality, virtual reality, and 3D content, because 47% agreed that it makes them feel connected with products. So more consumers than ever are having deeply engaging digital experiences. And why should their e-commerce experience be any different, right? This is an example by Shopify and Hero. They teamed up to integrate a virtual shopping experience within the e-commerce platform. So the service allowed merchants to answer product questions, provide advice, all in real time. So store employees could also reach out to consumers through text messages and offer personalized recommendations based on their needs and wants. And since launch, I believe the service has been used over 1 million times already. And this is an example by Etsy, and it isn't the first AR shopping app, but it's a powerful signal of how expectations around e-commerce are accelerating. So Etsy launched an augmented reality app, allowing consumers to virtually test out paintings and also photographs and prints in their homes before purchasing. So you could simply tap the AR icon on each product to visualize how an artwork piece would physically look different in your living room. Cool. This is an example by Allure in collaboration with the Perfect Corp. And they created a virtual concierge experience in partnership together. Allure being a beauty magazine. So together they offered readers an interactive experience for their November issue of last year. And using the company's UCam app, readers were able to virtually try on and try out the products that were used to create the issue's latest cover looks. So you could look like a cover model yourself. And this virtual experience brings the best of a brand's physical retail experience into consumers' homes. An example by Made, a furniture provider, and they launched a shop of a virtual reality experience. And via the interactive shop, shoppers could browse 4 different rooms in the brand's Amsterdam showroom. So what everyday luxuries might people be missing, and how can you deliver them to their doorstep? That is what room service Latam was asking themselves. So with their app, well, I should phrase it differently. The app is designed to bring the hotel experiences to consumers' homes, basically. So Colombian users could order hotel services such as room cleaning and laundry services, breakfast buffets, or book a workday at one of the participating hotels instead. This is an example by a Malaysian beer brand, and it also concludes this trend. And here you see an image from a street food fiesta, which was held virtually by Tiger Beer. And they added a layer of fun through avatars, games, and much more. So at each virtual stand, consumers could order street food and beer to be delivered via Deliver Eat, which is a delivery service of the region. So you could just, browse the shopping streets and then pick what you'd like right from there for it to be delivered within 30 minutes. Truly bringing that experience into the homes of the consumers. And I wonder, which elements and features of a real life experience can you recreate at home? And it's easy to, reason that this need for everything virtual will subside once the world opens up again. But that is the funny thing with consumer expectations. Once they have been set, they don't go away anymore. People are now used to having all of these digital alternatives to real life events. And even as, the world is opening up again and closing down again, just like it is here in Amsterdam, you can expect these expectations to linger. So again, I'm going to give you about 30 seconds for you to answer this for yourself. And then we continue with the last trend that we will be discussing today. All right, moving on to contactless economy. Our final trend of today about eliminating risk in a disrupted world. Because 2020 was the year that the QR code finally reclaimed its place in the limelight. Because in the light of the pandemic, businesses across the globe had to adapt and pivot processes to redirect their resources and facilitate more contactless experiences. And yeah, the convenience around these contactless solutions will ensure that demand for pandemic alternatives will definitely continue in 2021 and beyond, because again, these expectations will remain because people are now used to it, used to having this convenience. Because 78% of global consumers adjusted the way they pay for items in the wake of intensified hygiene concerns. And it includes the entire purchasing process, the entire customer journey as well. Because contactless solutions were already present in many sectors, but now that the pandemic is removing the human element faster than ever before, there is simply no way back. And numbers don't lie, right? This year alone, Visa processed 500 million additional contactless transactions, which brings me to our contactless commerce innovation. This trend is structured a bit differently than the other ones, because in it I have highlighted the contactless customer journey for you. So in, I believe it is 5 or 6 steps, I will take you from initial discovery to post-purchase behavior within the scope of the contactless economy. So without further ado, the first step, discovery. The example on the left is by Volkswagen Australia, and they unveiled the world's smallest car dealership, which was an AR experience that allowed consumers to view and customize cars from the comfort of their own home using their phone, which, as you can tell, probably also links to virtual concierges, right? The example in the middle is Showfields, which is an experiential department store in New York. And they developed the Magic Wand app, which allowed in-store shoppers to tap a screen, to tap or scan a display object in the store with their mobile phones, which would then give them all of the information that they need, including prices. And the example on the right is co-living rental platform Donde, and they launched an interactive live stream where renters could access information about the industry. Moving over to demonstration and trial. So on the left, you find Perfect Corp's contactless makeup try-on, again, using the UCAN virtual technology, which allows consumers to engage with gesture control without ever having to touch any of the products. The middle is an example by Gucci. It's called Gucci Live. And with it, the company aims to recreate the personal experiences of in-store shopping through video appointments with staff, where consumers can enjoy one-to-one consultation. And the one on the right is by Laos. And they introduced JobSite, which is a tool that helps home professionals to consult with consumers virtually to kind of identify what it is they need fixing at the house exactly. Step 3, order and purchase. So the one on the right, sorry, on the left is an example by Coca-Cola. And they unveiled contactless freestyle dispensers where consumers can customize beverages using their phone without ever having to touch the actual device. In the middle, you see Hollow Industries, and they developed hologram menus to allow diners to order without having to interact with the actual touchscreen. And the one on the right is by Amazon India. And it is a picture of one of their smart stores and virtual storefronts, which are activated by scanning a QR code. Then payment. So on the left, you find an example by CVS. They partnered with PayPal to roll out contactless payments in over 8,000 standalone stores across the US. The middle is an example by a mobile gas station that only allowed you to pay from within your car. So you wouldn't have to touch any of the payment services at the gas station. And the one on the right is an example, it's a travel example. And by scanning your payment card at one of the special turnstiles, users bypass ticket machines in the terminals altogether, so you don't have to touch anything anymore. And then on to delivery. The one on the left is an example by JD, and they began deploying autonomous delivery vans in the Chinese city of Jiangsu. So again, having a completely automated, non-human delivery system, which is similar to the example in the middle, which is a drone-piloted delivery service in Ireland. And the one on the right is more of an in-store alternative. So it was a robot that serviced beer. So it's a robotic server that delivers food and drinks to the restaurant consumers. And last but not least, the last step, post-sale support. So this is an example by Staples, and they partnered with logistics tech firm Optoro to trial in-store returns for online purchases. Using a QR code, shoppers could return purchases from any of the retailers. In the middle being the Volvo Valet, which allowed owners to schedule a vehicle repair for maintenance. Again, for that post-sale support. And on the right, yet another food example by Instacart. And they have offered over 60,000 seniors to buy groceries online via the brand's free senior support service. And that last example also links to the final lightbulb question that I want to ask you. So this tech-fueled rush to a contactless economy could leave some behind, similar to the seniors that were addressed in that last example by Instacart, because not everybody is as technologically savvy as Gen Z and millennials, for instance. So what additional processes do you need to implement to ensure everyone is included in this new type of economy? Again, going to give you 30 seconds, and then we're going to round off what we discussed here today. Just to repeat myself, at Trend Watching, we truly do believe that trends are nothing unless you apply them. So looking at your lightbulb questions and the answers you wrote down, let's revisit them one more time so you truly understand what each trend is about. We discussed brand care, about the rise of a new health economy and consumers expecting every brand to become a healthcare brand. We talked about for and by, about cynical consumers questioning the authenticity claims that brands are making. We talked about green by numbers, about brand sustainability claims being put under the spotlight. Creative challengers, about how brands can tap into the consumer need to work on new skills and also tap into their creativity. Virtual concierges, about bringing in-store experiences into the lives of consumers' homes. And last but not least, contactless economy, about how you can eliminate risk in a disrupted world. And again, all of these mindsets might have been triggered by COVID, but will persist long after. And I'm very curious to see and hear what opportunities you will find based on what we discussed here today. And if there is anything you would like to ask me or want to talk about, please reach out to me over LinkedIn. I'm always happy to have a discussion, to have a talk, to hear about your thoughts and ideas, or reach out to me on email, as you can see here on the slide. Thank you again for listening to me today. I hope I was able to provide you with some inspiration to trigger your mind and to help you come up with some new creative yet sustainable ideas. And I will happily talk to all of you next time. Thank you very much.